Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch. This is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Today, we are at the Bella Vista podcast studio and we're here with Pat from the investor relations team. Thanks for coming on board, Pat.
Thank you, Nate. Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone. The studio is pretty cool.
I know, I feel like I'm reading the news or something.
Yeah.
When
do you see the one that I'm preparing, but it's going to have like a big news desk.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for coming on board to the podcast today.
Pleasure. What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about equity, right?
Equity.
Yeah, it's a big key to investing. And, I've talked about this with the finance team beforehand, but I think, there's from the investment perspective of it, it's different, right? So if I bring on one of the finance guys, they're going to be like, yeah, we can pull the equity, we can do this, we can do that. But like the importance and the things that people don't look at when they're, getting into, building a portfolio. For example, myself, when I first started, buying properties, I knew how money worked a little bit, but I didn't know you could pull out equity. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I had to, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, nah, that's dodgy. Who wants to pull out? Your loan's going to get bigger, right? And then you can't pay, my whole goal should be paying off debt. But then 5 years later, I was like, hang on a second, the debt is worthless, right? Like I could be saving up 50 grand. It takes me 20 years of saving up to 50 grand at $2,000 a year or whatever. I could just borrow that money, use it today, and it's going to be more bang for buck for what I'm getting. So,
For sure.
So I guess, a bit of the mindset around equity and, share some of the experiences that you've seen with investors. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned something just there in terms of not being able to save fast enough kind of thing for your next deposit.
Yeah.
So you'll know the client that I'm talking about. He's active at the moment. He's buying a property with us. In fact, about to settle.
Yeah.
Now, this fella he came to us with less than 20,000.
Less than 20 grand.
Less than 20 grand. Now, he's got a great job, full time, but in terms of saving money, he can't save money fast enough to keep up with the market and the way that it's growing.
Yeah.
So he's jumping in. His deposit's like, I don't know, $15,000 or something.
Yeah.
But we've structured it and strategized in a way that we know that as soon as that property settles, he'll have a platform to then go off, refinance, pull out equity, which is likely going to be there, but can never be guaranteed, of course, until the day that the banks value it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most people would say, oh, well, I've only got 20 grand, which is a very minimal amount to start with, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But he's making something of it.
Exactly.
Which is really cool. So whether you've got a low amount of savings or whether you've got, $500,000 in savings ready to go, I think the reality is that saving that money for most people is it's a slow process. So they might be able to save maybe $1,000 a week.
So they do
something like that.
Let's say if you had to save $1,000 a week, right? That's 50 grand a year. That's cool.
There you go.
But you're going to have to earn 80 grand to save that. That's net. So then you have to have money to live on. So you have to be on like 150 grand a year to be able to save that, right? Not everyone's on 150 grand a year. Like the average household's on 150 grand a year. So to be able to grow so fast, I've never seen a millionaire or a billionaire that saved their way to wealth.
Exactly.
People don't save their way there. They have to do stuff to be proactive and produce and create and all that. So, yeah.
And I think I don't know if the compound effect is the right term here, but as someone gets their first property with their hard-earned savings, and then they turn it around, get some equity out, and then all of a sudden out of that equity, they can then go and get 2 properties.
Correct.
And then out of those 2, they can maybe get another 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And it will continue like this, over the months and years that they're actively investing.
Yeah.
And there's no way that people would be able to save for 5 deposits every year.
Yeah, exactly. I've got clients that have got like one lady who started with 80 grand 3 years ago, and she's got 19 properties and like 150 grand a year. So how can you save your way to 20 deposits almost?
Yeah.
Like 50 grand each, it's $1 million you have to save up. It's not going to happen like that. But
here's another scenario. Let's say that she did.
Yeah.
So how much cash are we talking in terms of deposit power, for 19 properties, let's just say on average.
$1 million. They say 50 grand each.
$1 million.
Yeah.
So how long would it take her, given her salary,
to save
$1 million?
20 years.
Okay, 20 years. So how long's she been investing for?
3 years.
3. So what do you reckon out of those 19 properties, let's say costed $200,000 on average per property?
Yeah.
What is the portfolio kind of worth now?
Today? 5 mil. Yeah. 5 mil, started with 80K, maybe added 50 grand a year for 3 years. There's like maybe 150, 200 grand added, 300 grand in total.
Okay. So 5 mil, if she was to, maybe she might be left with like, 3 mil if she was to sell everything, something like that.
Stuff like that, yeah.
So this is always the kind of the struggle that I think new investors who come to me and I chat with, on a daily basis about the fear of getting into more debt.
Yeah.
Right. Versus just being safe and not acquiring debt, and making sure that the cash flow is always cash flow positive. Like, I want a cash flow positive property, Pat. Like if it's negative, I don't even want to hear about it, but it might be like $5 negative.
Yeah. And I think that's stupid, right?
It's a huge opportunity cost.
If it's positive $50 or negative $50, it's neutral cash flow in my mind, right? Like something that's negative $50 today, looking at most agents out there, like property managers, the properties that we buy, 80% of them are under rented the day we pick them up by $50, $100 a week, 80% of them. So you just go put the rent up and then it becomes neutral cash flow. But what is the outcome? What are we buying the asset for? Are we buying it for growth, cash flow, equity? How do we balance it out throughout the portfolio? So looking at that position of if we pull out the equity, one thing that I hear probably is the biggest thing with clients is if I pull out 50K, and you would hear it more than I would, but if I pull 50K out, I've got to pay interest on that, right? So let's just use 50K as an example, right? 50K as a deposit, 50K as the equity you pull out, you've got to pay interest now you pulled out from that property. So what does it look like? Let's say it's 6% interest at 50 grand, that's 3 grand a year in interest that you have to pay, right? So 3 grand a year in interest would be about $60 a week. So if that's the case and you're pulling equity, well, you want to make sure the new property you're buying, if that's giving you $60 a week in your pocket, well, they're happy days.
Exactly. Yep.
Most of the time when we pull out the equity, right, you can just go back to your property manager and say, well, let's put the rent up by $50 a week. Right? I know I'm probably going to have some blue-haired, socialist, commie sort of entitled, you guys are picking on us as the renter, angry people at us that are going to be sitting here saying, you guys are robbing a tenant, right? It's just a market. If it wasn't a market, then it wouldn't be, right? So most people are so focused on, I've got to pay $50 a week, but if they're putting up the rent on their property, that's covering it anyway. So who cares, right? As a new one's positive cash flow, they're going to be better off. So looking at it from that perspective, your position is going to be much better. How long is it going to take you to save 50 grand, right? Let's say it takes you 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Let's say that 3 grand a year, if you had to save 3 grand a year, the interest, 3 grand, 3 grand, 3 grand, that's going to take like 16 years to save up 50 grand, right? I just calculated it in my head, right? That's stupid. Right? Why would you wait 16 years? 16 years time, the money's going to be fucking worthless, right? You wouldn't have been buying dinner for 50 grand, right? That's reality of the world we live in. So
I actually haven't thought about it like that, but that's so true.
What do you mean?
Oh, just in terms of saying, I don't want to go with that property, or I don't want to buy something else because interest rates are high.
Yeah.
And they're only, of course they're high. Everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah. What about next year?
Let's calculate.
Come down 2%.
Let's actually break it down. Let's have a look. So what's the interest rate now?
Yeah.
And what's it going to go up to? What's the difference? 3 grand a year.
Yeah. There's nothing.
Okay. So why is that a reason to not, set yourself up to hit your goals? And by the way,
it's a mindset.
I think like growing a portfolio, it's got to be hooked into like a bigger reason other than just buying property, right?
Yeah.
We always end up talking about philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
But like, that's what the clients that I see that end up going to 10, 15, 20 properties and more, they're the ones who are so laser focused into their end goals.
Yeah.
and they're not deterred, and they're not kind of like, you know, they stay on track, and they don't care that something might be slightly expensive, or something might be something else.
Do you know why?
That might deter them.
Because they have a fucking business plan.
There you go.
And all these businesses that go broke, they don't have solid strategies in place. The investors that know where they're going. I saw this quote once, it was like 20 years ago, and it said the world stands aside for the person who knows where they're going, right? If you're looking out the back of the window, you're doing 100 Ks on the road, you look out the window, it's like everything's like boom, 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 right? But if you're looking focused and you're looking forward, everything's just clear to you in the front. And I guess, you know, if you have clarity on what you need to be doing, your goals become habits, and those habits become a to-do list. Like, I don't look at any of my goals and go, oh, it's all too hard. It's like, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. Let's go and fucking take advantage of it and jump onto our goals and do it, right?
So why doesn't everyone do it?
Because they're not wired that way.
Too hard?
Too hard, fear, mentality, mindset. Everyone should be doing it, but why don't they? And it's okay, right? If everyone was a property investor with 20 properties, we wouldn't have any tenants now, would we? Right? So we need everyone in the world, right? We need everyone where there is where we're at, right? If we can go really philosophical on this and break it down to the micro aspect of society, but I don't know what it is, right? If I was to put it to thought and to answer it, I think it would be mindset. I think it would be their strategy and how they process it, right? If we just simply say, hey, buy a property, this thing here, it's a little shitter for 200 grand, right? Go buy it. People will be sitting there going, person goes, why would I buy it for? It's a bad property. It doesn't look nice. I wouldn't live in it myself. That area is no good. That's a unit. That's a house. That's a townhouse. The house is on the wrong spot of the block, right? All these objections, right? That's because they're looking at it from whatever story they have. They haven't got enough knowledge to be able to go, fuck, that's mad, right? If we were to walk into a room and see that there's 100 properties here to go buy, and we're looking at them and go, bang, that one, right? We know, because we know how to identify something, because we have clarity on that. Most people don't have clarity because they haven't structured a plan. They haven't taken that time out. That's what I always say to everyone. Make sure you have a business plan before you start investing. Make sure you have your goals right. Make sure you have a roadmap that you know what you're going to be able to do. Because if you don't, you're just buying properties willy-nilly.
That's right.
So you're not clear on your goals. How can you be clear on the actions you need to be taking?
So I've got another question for you as well.
Yeah.
So there's 3 fundamentals, maybe even 4.
5.
Okay, there you go.
5 now.
Keeps growing.
Yeah.
But, the core 3 is good cash flow. Yeah. Which is another topic in itself, cash flow versus passive income. Yeah. I always end up chatting with people on the difference of that. Yeah. Under market value and capital growth. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like people interpret the under market value portion as if to say, number 1, you only get off market deals. Okay. So that's one. Yeah. Another one might be, I was expecting the negotiated price to be really low. Like, if it's the asking price is 200,000, I want it at 150. Okay,
pay 250 for it,
right?
Well, that's the value.
So what I've learned, I reckon, in the last, it's coming up on 4 years now.
Wow, 4 years.
Anyway,
it's halfway along service loop.
Yeah, there you go. I reckon, like, buying the property under market value. Yeah. Yes, that's one thing. But also, just it's important to realize that we're buying in markets. Yeah. Like, if we flip that, we're buying in markets that are undervalued as well. Yeah. So do you reckon sometimes it doesn't necessarily come down to the individual property, like 123 Smith Street, that's the one we're getting. We have to get 123. No. Or it's more about,
that's how people go broke.
Yeah. Right? That's what I thought. So we're looking into the market.
I want the numbers. I want 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand equity when I'm buying it. What are we buying it for? What are we doing?
Yeah. So what would you say to someone where the asking price is 200,000? Online, offers above 200,000, and we're getting it for 198.
I don't know what they're talking about.
We're getting it for 198.
I don't know what they're talking about.
Who does it?
The person that would be thinking that, right? Because out there, let me just tell everyone very candidly that in the current market, in the 200, 300, 400 grand price range, people can't afford to spend $1 million on a property, right? So that's why I've said for the last 15 years of making videos and putting content out there for people, you need to have a recession-proof portfolio. What's a recession-proof portfolio? It means it fucking booms in a recession, right? Most people just make money. It's easy to make money in property, right? But a property portfolio that booms in a recession, it's strategic, right? And the last 4 years, people are like, oh, I can be a hero and buy property, right? All these people out there, they're gurus, experts, whatever. Well, we'll see who makes money in property when tides turn, right? And the tides have turned, and the tides will turn again to a different type of market, which we're about to see shortly, which we'll get into in other podcasts. But anyone could have made money the last few years, right? But holding that wealth, there's people going broke left, right, and center out there, right? Administration sales, liquidation sales, receivers appointed sales, the big end of town. That's how we get those bulk deals that we've been doing, right? It ain't seen in 200 grand, 300 grand properties anymore, because you can't go broke with a 200 grand property, right? If you do, you put it on the market, sell straight away. All the people that used to be able to afford $1 million, they can't service that debt anymore. So they've been pushed down to a servicing point where they're going to spend 400 grand, 500 grand. So out there in the market, there's a shit ton of people that can spend 200, 300, 400 grand. That's why properties were buying 6 months ago at 150 and now selling for 250, right? Let me just clear, right? The markets that we've been buying in, I'm not going to go into them because that's our IP, but there's lots of people out there in these markets. When a property hits the market, at least 20 people offer on the same day, right? I can't be any fucking clearer on that, right? So to get a property at market, there was a deal I did last week, and it was for Stephen's client, one of Stephen's clients, and it was a 4 duplex pair, right? So it had 2 duplex pairs in it, so 4 sets of tenancies on, right? 4 units.
Yep.
It's in regional New South Wales, and it was on for offers between 600 to 660, right? As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's fucking mad, right? I called the agent, and I said, I'll give you 640, can I do a deal? They go, oh, maybe I'll have to check with the owner. I said, I want 2 contracts, so it was on 2 titles. And then I said, scrap that. I said, I'll sign you a contract, 66W, unconditional, sight unseen, take it today, right? It's a double brick property and with a tile roof. And I had to take the risk on it, right? So out of, let's say you have 100 investors that are lined up, the person that would come in front of mine is the person that's going to sign a contract today, understanding the risk attached to it all, and go, fuck it, I'll take that deal because I see the value, right? So there ain't a minute of risk that I can take in doing a deal where someone is going to be like, oh, let me think on it. No, need to sign a contract now, right? So this client paid a 10% deposit within an hour, signed the contract from the other side of the world, right? Straight away to us, right? He was in fucking sleep, right? He was asleep. I had to wake him up. Hey, sign the contract, right? What am I buying? Sign the contract, right? So seeing here, the owners were old and they're old school country folk. So they had to go to the lawyer's office, sign it, took a day or two. In that process, there was over 20 offers on the property. 680, 720. Got over $800,000 for this fucking thing, right? $800,000, right? I know value when I see it. I don't need to be questioned on it because I see the value there, right? I got the deal at 660,000, even though it was offers at 800 plus, right? The reason why I was able to do that is because I was a path of least resistance. I knew what the agent was looking for with Alpha, right? They needed path of least resistance. I paid you everything, right? My text tool was like, hey, I don't see why I'm being disadvantaged here because I did everything right. Seriously, who would give you these offers and do this? And now you're trying to come back to me. This is kind of offensive. You don't want to lose all these buyers now, do you? So the agent went on relationship and I got the deal. Right? If I had to spend 720 on that deal, I fucking would have. Right? If I spent 800, no. Right? Out of principle. I got it for 660. That was full asking price. No cooling off. Don't go look at the property. Nothing. Right? Why? I sent the client a property that was the street behind it, right? And it was a singular duplex, right? It was fully renovated, brand new, $499,000, right? This guy got 4, right? It's fucking $2 million. Spend a bit on it. Spend 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, whatever. Renovate them. They need a reno. They're very neat and tidy. They're double brick. They're solid, right? 660,000. He bought 1, got 3 free. Bought 2, got 3 free, right? But you could sit there and say, oh, we paid full price. Well, you would never have got it for full price, right? There was a motel the other week.
Perspective, isn't it?
All perspective.
If a new investor is coming into the market, their perspective is, oh, well, the agent must know what the market value is.
Agent doesn't know shit. They know what they sold the last one for 6 months prior. Right? But they don't know what's changed in the market. They don't know there's no stock across the whole country at that level.
What the banks are valuing them.
They don't know what the banks are valuing out. They know what the real estate agent next door sold 1, 2 doors up for. Oh, they don't have that.
Here's another question.
But sorry, just on that, there was a viral property that went for sale the other week, and I went to follow it, right? It went viral, right? It was a motel of 100 units for $400,000, right? And I would have paid $500,000 for it straight up. Went straight to the agent, $500,000, bang, do it, right? That's $5,000 a fucking unit, right? Like $5,000 a unit, right? And I'm sure that if we said it to 100 people, they'd be, oh, I'm not going to buy it because this or that, the next thing, right? Just what happens. So I went to 3 people. I said, hey, I've got this property. One guy goes, yeah, sign me up on it. But the agent came back and said, oh, 550, 580, 600. I was like, I'm not even fucking bothering with this one, right? It sold for like 700 or something, but still needs $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. It could be the person that bought that should have deep pockets because it could cost them like $5 million. I know what it costs to build these things and renovate these things and whatever. At a certain point, I see value, right? So I went in for 500. I was okay paying extra 100 over the price, but it turned into an auction. They actually had a 24-hour auction. You have to register details, turn to a fucking auction. That's the market we're dealing with. We ain't dealing with a market. I don't like dealing with hot markets, but everything's hot now. And it's going to be hot because we've got inflation. If we look at the videos I filmed at the end of 2023, I said, I don't care what's going to happen. I ain't going to make predictions this year. The only prediction I'm going to make is that inflation is not going to stop. They can't get that genie back in the bottle. And inflation is going to take everything over and gobble it. And we're at that point. We're heading into hyperinflation. So the cost of building things going to go up. We're going way off topic for our discussion of finance and equity today, right? But I think it's cool, right? Because it's somewhere.
No, it's relevant because this is behind the scenes.
Correct.
You know, right. And when you present a deal, it is wrapped up.
Yeah.
We say to each other like, hey, we've got to wrap this deal up. Like,
it needs to be gone and done. 10 minutes, contract, where is it?
But you've wrapped it up in between, negotiating with the agent, getting the contract terms that protect the client. Like, if those terms weren't there, the agent would just slap you with 5 days, get it sorted, then you're unconditional. That's it.
Yeah. I did one in Queensland the other day, block of 4 units, 630K. It was on for 620. I went in no terms, no conditions. She goes, ain't going to happen at that. In this suburb, 2-bedroom units, $300,000 a piece. 1-bedroom units, $250,000 a piece. So there was 2 2-bedders, 1 bedder. So it's $500,000, $600,000, $1.1 million. I got it for 630. I said, everyone else fuck off, right? We'll take it. She goes, okay, I like how you work, right? Did the deal. She knew that she fuck the owner over the property. That's great, right? We bought it cheap. That's it. That's the market. That's the market that's out there. But to get those deals across the line, like, we have to let something go sometimes. We have to let something go. And if I'm stealing the thing, I'm like, okay, if I have to rebuild half of this thing, well, then there could be termites in the roof, could be whatever. So in Queensland, unconditional contract with no finance clause, no terms and conditions, is just like a 5-day cooling off period anyway. So we could have pulled out. And in that time, we slid in a pest and building inspection in there. She said, no, we're not going to allow it. You signed it without the pest and building clause in that. I said, I just need to make sure that the property is going to be good for the tenants. We need to make sure whatever repairs are made. It's, oh, sure, Nathan, coming through, right? So it's how you engage in a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. How we engage in a conversation to be able to get that deal, right? And that's what's important. So we're able to get that. We checked the property out. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all, right? But we had to do what we had to do to get the deal across the line because we saw value. So you said, Pat, there's the 3 things we talk about: below market value, upside for capital growth, and strong cash flow, which I find is funny because I always talk about that on video camera. I've added something in the last 2 years, right? I haven't talked about that in front of
rebuild cost.
Below rebuild cost. You hear me talk about, right? So it's a 5 and below rebuild cost, which I'll get into in a second. And then the ability for that to be able to service, right? So if we're in an area, let's say the Hills District, and everything's selling here for $1.5 million, the household income needs to be $150,000 for it to be able to be purchased. How can that property go from $1.5 million to $3 million? Because the income doesn't allow for that to service it, right? But if you've got a $300,000 property and the average income's 120 grand or 100 grand, well, that could serve as a loan up to about 800 grand. Well, that could allow that to happen, right? So that's the ability for it to go up, and it comes down to servicing.
So, but that point in itself should hopefully open up a few eyes in terms of why we buy at the 200 and 300 level. It's not because it's cheap. Maybe that's one reason, but it's certainly not enough to suggest that, hey, this is a good deal because it's cheap. There are so many variables that back that up in terms of, you know, the downside for risk. Is it going to get cheaper than that? Yeah. Very unlikely. Yeah. But will you always have a buyer in that market? You bought it at 200. There you go. Yeah. You bought it at 200 or 300. Yeah. There is always going to be someone that can afford that. In an absolute worst case scenario where you have to sell it for what you bought it for, which is also unlikely. Yeah. But there's always going to be affordability at that point. There's probably not always going to be affordability at 3 million, 4 million, 5 million.
I spoke to a new client of yours. I don't know whose client it was yesterday. And he said to me, because there was a lot of changes in mindset for this guy, right? He came from a migrant family. He's born here, migrant family. And he said to me talking about deals and having a bit of a laugh and stuff about some of the deals. And he said, I've got a cousin that's got a property that just bought it for like 1.5, rents for $500 a week. And he goes, I don't know how he's going to fucking hold on to it. And I said, if a property is negative $1,000 a week or $500 a week, let's say it's negative 30 grand a year. In 10 years time, that thing has to go up 300 grand just to break even, right? And that's without any opportunity cost. And it's without you making a cent, right? Because of the cash flow loss. People don't look at those things and factor them in to the equation. You asked me beforehand about why doesn't everyone do it, right? Like, why doesn't everyone do all this sort of stuff? I was at the gym the other day. I go for little walks and stuff. And I was talking to a mate of mine, and my mate, I've been at him for about 8 years about inflation, right? I talked about the depression that's coming, the hyperinflation. Initially, this guy is involved with the government sort of stuff. Like he's got like government job and shit like that. It's always make fun of him, right? Joking, but you know, like we always like, he's like, I'm trapped in this system, right? I see everything. And it's been a big mindset shift for him to change from shouldn't question, right? And I did the face in like it's like a glitch in the matrix, because it's like it's a questioning and opening. And we're talking about precious metals, and we're talking about hyperinflation, and I was like, it's here, right? It's here, and we're talking about it. And he just goes, mate, he goes, it took me fucking 8 years. And little things that I say, like on podcasts and Facebook Lives and stuff like that, it's only, like I said about you'll pay your house off with a Big Mac, right? When inflation hits, you realize that a cost of a Big Mac will pay out a property, because a Big Mac will get inflated away. You're paying $200,000 for a Big Mac, our currency will be dead. And then the price that you're paying today for a Big Mac will be able to pay the debt out on your property from 10 years ago, whatever. And it's just until it's a little switch that goes aha, right? It's the aha moment that it's like that's the awakening of it. So on the price of rebuilding a property, right? And we need to get into the inflation aspect of it, and we need to get back to the actual topic of discussion today, which is the equity.
But inflation is relative to equity as well, you know, because if we're talking equity, that also winds back to what the bank is valuing their property at. Yeah. And that will be determined by, you know, sales in the area, comparable sales, and amongst other things. Yeah. But the banks will look at these sales and say, oh, everything's going up, but it's going up because of inflation. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And just a side note as well, over the years, like we used to buy heaps of properties for clients at 150, 175, 190, that kind of stuff. It's getting very rare to see a property with a 1 in front of it now, even in the most obscure place of Australia. Yeah. So it's very interesting, which then, sorry to hijack the mic here, but then it also, when I say this to people, they also feel like, oh shit, I've missed the boat. I've missed the boat. Yeah. So what do I do now? Do I just not invest because now I've missed the boat?
I could have said I missed the boat 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I bought my first house in Sydney for $248,000. Yeah. Am I lucky? No. It was I was dealing with more shit than I would be buying a property today, right? I had so many challenges, so much adversity, so many reasons why I was going to fail, so many bad things coming my way. I couldn't afford it. I was broke, for all those sorts of things. I was young. I was 18, right? But yeah, like there's always a reason, right? There's always
you can say the same thing to someone in 1995.
Correct, right? Correct.
Oh, it's gone up by 10 grand. I guess I've missed the boat. I won't do it.
The thing that's happening is your money is losing its value.
Yeah.
The most shittest investment is having cash, right? So anything apart from cash is better, right? We've all got to agree with that. So with the cash, if that's losing its value, your debt is going to be paid off with devalued currency. So it's easy to pay that debt off in the future, right? I made a call on this the other day on Facebook Live, and then someone said to me, fuck, my coffee's gone up so much, right? I don't drink coffee. I don't know what the cost of a coffee is, but coffee's gone up, right? Coffee beans have gone up from like $1 a kilo 2 years ago to $3.60 a kilo. That's fucking 360% inflation, right? In 2 years, 3 years. But if we look at the cost of coca, right? Not cocaine, right? Coca powder, right? The coca powder. I've never had cocaine, so I don't even know what it goes for, right? I don't even know what coca powder goes for, right? But coca or coca beans, coca powder, that's what you cook up in your house, right? But cacao, coca, whatever the fuck you call it, right? Tomato, right? Cacao. The quality is going down because people are cutting the corners. They're cutting it by putting shit quality contents inside of these things. It's gone up by 6,000%, right? That's 6 times it's gone up in value in a year.
Yeah.
Right? So what's going to happen to you chocolate when you buy a fucking chocolate bar? That's going to be forced to push that up. What's going to happen to the workers there? They're going to, I can't afford this, so I need to have a pay rise, right? So then they're going to have to put the price up. So this spiraling concoction of inflation is hitting everything. It's not, it's not discriminatory against what it's going to take down. Inflation is going to fuck everyone over. Right? It's going to fuck everyone, even me and you, right? As great as we are, best property investors, whatever, it's going to fuck all of us, right? But you can come out the top as king from that, right? And queens for the women, right? You can come out on top of this by playing the cards right, because you can pay off the debt with pennies, right? The debt is nothing. Who cares, right? You paying off a mortgage with a chocolate bar, $12,000 for fucking a ton of chocolate, right? This costs $2,000. So I'm joking, like I'm laughing about it because people's coffees and chocolates, but don't fucking laugh because you can't afford it anymore, right? People can't afford this. But then the cost of your house, how much would it cost to build the house? What happens when the copper wires go up, when the copper pipes go up, when the bricks go up? What about when the electricity goes up? What about all the fuel to build the brick? The brick needs to be put in a kiln. They put the clay in. Yeah, the clay's in the ground, but you got to go and use the fuel to burn to make the bricks. That's gone up. So the brick prices have gone up. The delivery driver that drives the fucking bricks to your site to build your house, the petrol's gone up. So the delivery company's charging more. Inflation's going to ramp these things up.
And all the while, the wages are staying pretty stagnant.
Stagnant. It's a big debt Ponzi. The big debt Ponzi that the governments are in trillions of dollars of debt, right? I've said this so many times. I'm going to keep saying this, right? If you haven't heard it beforehand, first time you're hearing it, take note of this, right? I might be off with my numbers here slightly. US debt at the turn of the millennium, right? With the Y2K bug, some buildings collapsed, in America, airplanes allegedly took them down. All these things, at that point, we had to go and invade countries, start war crimes, whatever, right? Take out people. The US debt was like $1 trillion. Right, at the turn of the century, the turn of the millennium, 24 years ago. And then in the GFC, it rose to about $8 trillion, right? And everyone's like, oh, wow, right, we got through the GFC, that's great, right? We got through the GFC. They didn't do anything, right? All they did was put the financial system on palliative care and hooked it up to a dialysis machine to keep it alive in a vegetative state, right? Everyone thinks they're having a party, everyone thinks they're a guru, but they're not because the money's dead. So fast forward to now, or fast forward to when Donald Trump came in, right? Everyone's like, we're going to make it great again. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, right? And he said he's going to wipe out all the debt, right? He took over a debt of 20 trillion, right? He left the debt at like 25 or 26 trillion after 4 years, nothing, right? Took 4 years to go up for $4 trillion. This guy that's in now, the venture guy, he has now got the debt. And I'm politically atheist. Anyone that shakes hands or deals sits at those tables, I don't have any, confidence in, right? It's now at $34 or $35 trillion, right? It was only 3 months ago, it said it went 33 trillion. The money has lost its value, right? The world is awash of debt. The interest bill in America at the moment is $1 trillion every fucking 3 months.
Correct.
$1 trillion. The whole fucking Afghanistan and Iraq war cost was $1 trillion. It took all of history, 200 years of the US debt cycle to get to $1 trillion. And now we pay that every 3 months in interest. Right? There ain't no fucking saving this, right? Use credit cards to pay credit cards, right? That system is going to spiral out of control. Inflation is here. They can't get rid of it. Understand that. The debt gets wiped away. It's easy to pay it off. $1 trillion before and the end of the world, $1 trillion now. That's just this quarter's interest bill, right? So how does that transpire with your property, right? You want to own the assets. You want anything that can be inflated away. The properties get inflated away. The cost of building the property gets inflated away. The wage for all the people to come along to build the property gets inflated away. The debt stays the same. So if you have to pull equity, right? It's probably the best investment someone could have. And I'm not here to give financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're just two crazy guys here talking about things. And
so in other words as well, we could say that the actual acquisition of debt is really
an asset.
It's an asset. And that's
you're blessed.
Yeah, that's the main. If you can get more debt, as long as you're not going out buying bloody speedboat or the stupid
Hawkers and blow, you'll be right.
But if you
bought a stupid car, buy a Datsun, buy a GTR, buy a fucking a Ford, buy a Holden. Those things have gone up crazy. Right? Why? The car didn't get any better. Things didn't change. It's just the money became so worthless. That's where the biggest wealth transfer is going to happen over these next few years. And the wealth transfer, you could be as smart as you fucking think you could be. You could have all the knowledge in the world, but you could still lose your shirt, right? Because if you can't hold on to the assets, you're screwed, right? So affordable assets with affordable people, like Macca's is successful because it sells a shit cheeseburger, right? And shit hamburgers and shit Coke, right? That's too expensive for people. People can't even afford it now, right? Macca's could go broke. Who knows, right? Who knows what will happen in the change of this, right? The change of wealth. It's a paradigm shift, right? But you've got the most affordable end of town that we're providing to. The cash flow is the key, right? The cash flow, being able to support and hold on to that asset. You want an asset that's going to be dragged through inflation, and you want to make sure that the cash flow is going to be able to support it, get to the other side. That's my thoughts. What a little rant.
That's okay. It's all relevant. I think if we're looking at equity, we could say, oh, well, buy a property, hope it goes up in value, make sure you can service, pull out the equity, go again. But for everyone out there to get the background knowledge as to why you are so, intent on the strategy that we implement, it's great. It's great to have that background knowledge, because I always say to people, the properties that we're sending out to you, yes, they might not be the most attractive and you might not want to live there, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that we need to be getting assets that are going to get you to where you need to be.
And you hold on to them.
And if you're going to spend too much just because you want a nice, shiny kitchen benchtop, then this strategy actually won't work, because you'll probably get to 3 or 4 properties at best, and then you'll find yourself you're stuck, and then one of your properties might go vacant, and then you're seriously negative cash flow, and then you're thinking, oh, I better sell one, and then you're back in the ocean of people swimming, holding cash, which is losing its value, right? As opposed to holding assets, allowing them to grow, whether or not they're in a regional or in a metro or in a capital city. Like, guys, we've got to realize that it's about getting the hard assets. It's not about, the old mindset of getting a north facing aspect, or, getting on the right side of the street, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm on the third level, so that the tenant's going to have to use the staircase.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't translate when we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the track.
Yeah. And you just need to have the assets to take through the cycle. That's the reality. As you're just saying that, I was thinking about something, right? Like, everyone likes investing in shares, right? Everyone likes buying shares go up, whatever, right? Go through the ASX 200, the fucking Dow Jones, whatever, right? Look at every single company. All those companies have debt. Every single one of them has debt. They're just a big fucking debt Ponzi scheme vehicle, right? And you got nothing to show for them, right? You got some bits of paper that someone else's controls in a custodian, right? I'm not here bagging shit on shares. I'm just throwing it out there for facts of what it is. Each one of those companies would have raised capital to start their business to get on the stock market, right? So maybe people should instead of going, oh, I'm going to get a loan, the debt's bad, all this sort of stuff. How about you talk about it like, hey, we've got to raise some capital to be able to acquire more assets, to increase our cash flows and improve our revenue streams, right? When was the last time you thought about your property portfolio like that? So you go, oh, debt's bad, I'm going to worry about this. No, you need to become a good debt manager. You need to manage your debt better. That's what it is. That's the reality of it. Me and you just bought property each, right? We're neighbours. High five, we've got our first,
there you go,
neighbour property, right? But I set a goal this year, I want to buy 100 properties, right? Am I fucking crazy? People might think I am, right? But when you look back, it's like, fucking a bit weird, but we made the call that was right and made the decision that was right with it. My goal this year was to buy 100 properties. Why am I buying 100 properties for? Because I need them to, I see what's happening. I can see the opportunity. I need the assets to take through the next cycle. And once I be able to get the next 100, I'm going to be saying I'll buy 1,000 in a month, right? And when I say 100, I say 100, not like I'm going to buy 2 this month, 2 next month. I'm just going to go straight out and buy 100 a month. It ain't there right this minute, but it's coming close. We've talked about it, and it'll be coming in very shortly. And, you know, I'm excited. I've never been so more excited than the knowing that we're on the eve of a hyperinflation, the access to cheap Ponzi scheme credit, and the fact that monetary policy is going to reverse very shortly. Oh, we've got investors. Let's just run some numbers here, right? Oh, I could accumulate $3 million worth of debt, $4 million worth of debt. Let's say that you get $3 million. Let's say you're lucky to get $3 million worth of debt. Let's say you're blessed to get $5 million. It's like, thank our fucking lucky stars that we've been able to get $5 million worth of debt. You should thank yourself lucky, right? So if you're holding that debt today at 6% interest rate, right, and your cash flow is all supporting and all that sort of stuff, and it's neutral cash flow, great. Let's say in a year's time, 2 years' time, 1 year's time, 6 months' time, 2 weeks' time, whenever interest rates change, right? And we can all see now that they can't control inflation with interest rates, and they have to change monetary policy, because the fact is that there's been more businesses shut in the last month than what there has been in most years since records started in 1980s, right? That's the level of insolvencies that are blowing up. So if we're looking at what's happening, the economy is crumbling because they've pushed interest rates up too high. Let's say interest rates drop by 2%. You're lucky. You're so lucky you've got $5 million worth of debt, right? I say lucky. People might think Nathan being smart. I fucking mean it genuinely. If you've got the debt and you've got the asset, you've got the cash flow coming through. When the interest rate drops by 2%, 2% of $5 million is $100,000 a year. You'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm fucking thugging it out in 2024. And 2025 rolls around, you go, oh, okay, cool, interest rates have gone down. Fuck, I don't need to work anymore, 100 grand passive income, because my rents have been pushed up with inflation, my debt has come back down, and that's the opportunity there. So looking at it from that perspective, like, debt is a very important tool. It's raising capital so you can buy more assets, you can have more net worth position, your profit and loss statement is going to get much bigger, and obviously you want to be making it more profitable. So how can you increase your revenue if you can't leverage? Leverage of all different things. I leverage everything around me, right? My mate's going to be, oh, you know, fuck, you're the king of leveraging, right? You leverage anything. I leverage time. I literally leverage time of things, right? I'm like, oh, how about we do this? Oh, we'll give it 48 hours, right? Whatever. I have to push it because it's like, I'm leveraging it. We're just leveraging bits of money that never existed beforehand, that you're taking control over shit, and you're paying it off with a devalued currency later on down the track. Who would want to do that? So are you prepared for it? Are you ready for it? That's what people need to, if you don't understand how it works, it all sounds stupid, it all sounds bad.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if someone just tuned in for this last 5 minutes.
That thing I had a bowl or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but within context, totally right. I think what a lot of clients of ours struggle with is again kind of like staying motivated to keep pushing, because the equity isn't always there straight away.
Yeah,
we have these great stories of clients getting equity after 2 months or 1 month or 1 week or 3 months or whatever it is. But we've got to remember that is a case-by-case basis, and every individual that's coming to put this strategy into place, it is all based on servicing your personal, finance commitments, what's coming in, what's going out, all that stuff is going to determine what lender you can service with, and that is going to determine maybe how generous and how quick your equity is released, because some lenders are more generous, they're more quick. But if it's not within, 3 months, which is the awesome, cool story.
Chuck a dummy spit.
Well, they do chuck a dummy spit. For even myself, like I bought a property in January. I couldn't service for equity, but 12 months on, so the next January, this January that just gone, there was like 80K equity there.
Yeah.
What else am I gonna save 80 grand in 12 months?
That's the thing.
It'd be great. Maybe I gotta work harder.
But you're the one telling the story here. So
no, but really, like, I think everyone's expectations has to be realistic going into this stuff as well.
I remember that someone tried to take the piss out of me on TV, right? On a live news article, right? Someone, the baldy guy on the Sunrise show, right? He said something like, he left a message for one of the guests, one of the hosts, and the host asked, right? He always leave provoking stuff. I don't know, he had it in for me or something, right? But he had a host that was hosting the show, and she asked this question like, how much? I remember I was 30 years old at the time, and she asked me the question, and I knew that she was going to ask me the question because one of the producers told me, hey, this person left a question in there for you, and she tried to stump me with it, right? And it was, how much debt do you have in your property portfolio? I said, about $20 million. And then she was like, so she was meant to follow up with the thing, well, aren't you scared that if something goes wrong, you're going to lose all this money? You're going to have $20 million worth of debt? I looked her fucking fair square in the eye, and I said to her, I think this is verbatim, word for word, yeah, but my portfolio's worth $50 million, so I'll still have $30 million. And I laughed. And the co-host of the show goes, yeah, right. I think it was an Andrew O'Keefe bloke, right? And we just had a laugh and had a moment. And then as soon as it was like, what do we say now? It was like, fuck, over to sport, right? And I got off the stage. And as I got off the stage, shook the mic off, whatever, I remember walking to the door. And as I walked to the door, I thought to myself, I'm 30 years old. My net worth is $30 million. And it wasn't like, because the ego of that, it was just like, fuck, that's pretty cool, right? And I went to think about it. And one of my mates wrote a message, one of our colleagues back in the day wrote a mic drop, right? Right, boom. And then I was like, I just thought about it. I was like, that means I've earned $1 million a year net worth position since the age of fucking 0. I couldn't even wipe my own ass. All right? I couldn't even spell, eat. Now, some might say I can't do that now, right? But for every year of my life, the CEOs of all the ASX 200 companies don't earn $1 million a year, right? That's my net worth position. It was created because of this system allowed us to play the game at the table, right? It wasn't for the banking system, it wasn't for the corrupt currencies that we've got, it wasn't for the fact that our money is becoming worthless and inflation's out there, it wasn't for the fact that I could go and borrow money, take out equity, buy assets. I wouldn't have been able to play this game. No one else's property would have gone up in value, wouldn't have been in existence. That allowed it to happen.
Yeah, so I think, for a message for people out there that are like, I've got 1 property, or I've got 3 properties or 10 properties, and I can't get the equity out. Yeah, like you gotta hang in, right? You gotta hang in there until it's there, or until your servicing allows you to get it.
You got an 18-year-old client that bought a property 3 months ago, 6 months ago. It's the day the property settled, I said, let's go rip equity out of it, right? Send it back to finance today, let's pull the equity. He paid 200 grand for the thing, couldn't revalue it. I'm like, this thing's worth 260 straight away. Day we bought it 260. And now the thing's worth 350, right? And it's only been 3 months or 6 months. And he just pulled out like 60, 70K net equity. and we got that for deposit for number 2. He's buying a second property. He's fucking 18, right? It's not like this part-time pizza kid, and then he's got a job now earning 40, 50 grand a year, right? He can't save that fast, right? He's got a portfolio. His parents are getting dragged in and saying, hey, let's, if your son's doing it, how can I do it, right? And it's really cool to see that there's like the 18-year-old kid is out there hustling, building a portfolio. By the time he's 30, he's going to be retired. Like that's the stories that we created. And equity, without having capital, you can't do shit. Go save your way to $1 million. You ain't going to do it, right? You need help. Equity's the leveraging tool. If you can't get somewhere, that could be the missing piece, the missing link for you to be able to get there.
Yeah. And in terms of phases, like you got to build up your acquisitions before you can really have some fun and juggle it around and sell down if you really wanted to, or raise rents or refinance again and keep building the portfolio.
Yeah.
But you need to get there first. You need to take the action to actually get there first. And it can, I feel like sometimes it can be a little bit maybe confusing or overwhelming for people to keep on grinding, but you gotta try,
One of our colleagues, that's ex-colleague that we still work with, she said to someone once, it was pretty funny because she was very harsh, right? When she spoke to people, she was like, "You don't like it, this is how it is," right? And she said to someone, "If you think this is tough, you go work for the rest of your life, right? It's going to be a lot tougher."
Yes,
I found it funny when I heard it back. It was like, it's funny actually, right?
That's true.
What, are you fearful of a bit of debt? The money's not even yours. It's a bit of paper you sign, right? It's not, who cares? Someone else is paying for it, right? If you manage your cash flow, you manage your assets, you manage your position well, you can outsource it. All my debt is outsourced inflation. Other people are paying for it, not me, right? That's the fun part. So that's a bit of a spin on pulling equity out, right? You can save your next deposit, or you can look at more strategic ways and understand how the system is, right? Like all the successful people out in the world understood the system and they played the fucking game, right? Kerry Packer said it on that interview. If you haven't seen it, Google the Kerry Packer tax investigation, right? Kerry Packer, James Packer's dad, richest guy in Australia in the 90s, early 2000s, died. You can't take it all with you, folks, but have fun with the journey as well. But with it, he was pulled into a Royal Commission or something about tax, and he said, "You guys set the game, right? I'm just working within the parameters. I haven't done anything illegal. You've made this game, right? Go watch the YouTube video on Kerry Packer with his tax investigation. You set the game. These guys have set the game. We're playing in the game. Use it to your advantage. If not, you're going to be taken advantage of from the system." So, 2 cents. Thoughts on it?
Yeah, cool. My final thoughts as well that we didn't even really touch on is
there's lots of things we're going to talk about today.
But very quickly, in terms of pulling equity, if you believe as an owner that there's equity in your property, you got to make sure that the people around you, like your mortgage broker or your bank, are working with you on that too. Because what I've learned in my experience is, of course, we've got Zinger Finance internally.
Yeah.
But on occasion, external brokers will simply say, "No, I don't think there's equity in the property." And so therefore, they just don't do anything.
Because it's too much hard work to pull out 50 grand. They get paid for it. You have to they'd rather go and do a first home buyer loan.
Yeah. And fair enough to them too.
Yeah.
Like I get that. I get it why a broker would say, "I'm not going to refinance that $200,000 property just in the off chance he can get 50 grand.
I can spend 2 weeks working on your file to get $46.72.
Yeah, that's right. So point being is make sure that the people that you have around you are working in your best interest. It's super, super important.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. Maybe we'll have another podcast shoot soon with the other stuff we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we'll have a few more dot points here. We could probably make a podcast out of each dot point. But anyway, that's
very good. Very good. Thanks a lot, Pat.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
We'll catch up soon, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Catch up next Thursday. Make sure you follow us on Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify. If you need help with anything, if you want to reach out with Pat, send us an email, admin@B.Invested.com.au. The team will put you in contact with Pat. Call us 1300 367 925 and keep hustling. And thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated.